if you still had time, I would like to switch this conversation around. I asked you before about creating a list of your favorite, or at least some of your favorite Christian albums. This is an idea I kind of stole from the Black Sheep podcast, but I put a Christian spin on it.
Hmm.
But yeah, would you be? Are you still down to do that?
Yes, I don't think
Okay.
you realize how well you've loved me with that question because I love lists.
Oh, me too. Me and my friend Mitchell, we do it on our podcast all the time, like our favorite movies or favorite albums, favorite whatever. We do our annual like favorites of the year. So yeah,
Hmm.
I'm all for that, and I usually always have like a definitive top 10 of something that it changes over time, but I just
Same
always
here.
have to have it,
Yeah.
so
Do you have
but
that with
yeah.
like movies?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll have to
movies.
ask you about that after this.
Oh sure. Yeah, absolutely. uh I actually do have to, I have to make my own, like, I don't have my own like top 10 favorite Christian albums list, like
Hmm.
definitive list. I need to work on that. I
The
feel
thing
like
is, I feel like my favorite albums though are Christian albums,
Okay,
or
well that works out.
at least adjacent. Like
Yeah.
even like artists that might be iffier that are influential for me in terms of
Right.
like how Christian they are still like have that bend.
It's like,
So
are they
it's
Christian? Whatever,
yeah,
it's fine.
but it's an easier question for me maybe with the Christian albums is kind of that's like my top five favorite albums period. So
Okay,
I really
awesome. Well, let's hear what you got then.
so it's funny because I came up with like four really immediately, and of course I'll go one by one. But like I came up with four,
Yeah.
and there was a fifth. The fifth, I was like racking my brain because there's four that immediately come to mind for me.
Uh-huh.
Um, and the first one, I'm gonna go in like I'm really geeky about this stuff, but I'm gonna go in order of like influence and when they really started
Sure,
to
yeah.
influence me. But first is 40 Acres by Caveman's Call.
Mm.
Um, that was like the first when I was 13. I think that was like the first album I really fell in love with, and that was like the first band that became like my band, like my favorite band at the
Nice.
time, and saw them live multiple times, and that record just yeah, I feel like Caden's Call almost like they were folk, but then they had some rock elements, but then
Yeah.
they're kind of weird in moments.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then also like very theological. And it
Mm-hmm.
was just like they kind of checked every box because I grew up with like James Taylor and
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Hornsby, and that was like the music my dad would listen to in the car, and so they were
Yeah.
kind of like they sort of. I felt they checked all the boxes for like what I'd listened to up to that point, but they also kind of because they were more alternative-y, a little bit weirder, had a little bit of like a rock edge at times. Like
Yeah.
they also kind of like set a tone for what I would get into afterwards in a
Mm-hmm.
way. Um, 40 Acres, I just think is like a perfect record. There's
Yeah. Yeah.
songs on the record that, yeah, like Table for Two, Faith in My Eyes. The title track on it, I basically told Asher when I recorded the song Shelter Heart, I'm like, I just want this to sound like the song 40 Acres. And so,
Nice. Yeah, I can see
yeah.
that. Yeah. Totally. Was that the
But
is that the album where Thankful's on?
yeah, Thankful's on there, yeah.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
second track too.
Great
Yeah.
song. Yeah.
It's
I mean, and
amazing too. I didn't realize, I feel like I was also really young getting into that record, so I didn't know anyone my age who liked it because I got all my older siblings' music, which is awesome.
mhm. No, yeah,
And
I
so
was the same way.
it's funny like talking with pastor friends of mine who are like 10 years older, some of my closest friends who they loved that record, and I didn't
Yeah.
realize that people were listening to that record because no one around me besides my siblings like knew who Caden's Call was. But It's
Yeah.
So I felt cool too. I think liking it, but I just I love that record. I feel like a lot of people, and this isn't to knock on like other more like like the DC Talks and Audio Adrenalines, but like for me, I was just
Mm,
more into like the Caveman's Call, Jars of Clay kind of style of music when I
gotcha.
was younger. Is more what I
I
grew up with. But
I didn't as a kid, growing up, I was definitely more of a I was a big Newsboys fan, big into DC Talk and Audio Adrenaline. It wasn't until like I got older that I really started to appreciate more of the alternative stuff like Jars of Clay and Cademan's Call. Even though I grew up listening to Thankful, that was a jam. Uh,
mm-hmm.
but yeah, it's the kind of thing that you don't really appreciate until, well, at least I felt like I didn't really appreciate until I got older,
Yeah,
And Derek Webb, his songwriting ended up being a huge influence on me, which is kind of a shame because I don't know if you're familiar, if you really know, but I had a little bit of a recent
y'all
online
are best
drama.
friends now.
What's that?
I said y'all are best friends now.
Yeah.
Just joking.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
man.
people know about that. I won't get into it,
Yeah,
but
no.
it's just kind of.
But his songwriting was super impactful for
Oh
me.
yeah,
Like
and
I mean,
he's
his
he's
songwriting on 40 Acres. I like Thankful fine, but it's actually like Table for Two, Faith in My Eyes, Somewhere North.
mm,
Those are three of my favorite songs of all time.
yeah,
Those songs all sound like home to me. And so
yeah,
yeah, he was like the first songwriter who I remember being like, wow, this guy's stuff really impacted me. So
yeah. I
that
remember.
Caveman's Call just in general
Oh
just
yeah,
really
yeah.
just paved the way.
And I got really into their debut, their self-titled album. Uh, their song, "I Just Don't Want Coffee," was like
Uh huh.
it was one of the first songs I remember hearing and being like really noticing the lyricism in the
Mm.
songwriting, and that's why it was like so influential to me. It's like, oh man, you can write a song and it doesn't have to be like very upfront with what it's trying to say. Like you can be creative with your lyricism. Like, so yeah, it was very influential to me in Cademan's Call. Yeah, I was really happy when they recently did their I guess reimagined version of the self-titled
Yeah,
album.
bring it back into light.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna just start singing like "Sue Me, Sue Me" like all night.
It's so good.
That's those two
It's great.
records. Those first three were great, but I mean all their stuff so good.
Yeah.
But 40 Acres, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
long story short,
Cool.
that album was massive
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. All right. So what's next?
So next, again, like order of influence. If you put a gun to my head and ask me what's my favorite album of all time, I would say this album, and it's
Okay.
"Cities" by Amberlynn.
Oh,
Um,
dude. Ugh.
oh, whoa, dude! I just noticed that. That's
My
there.
head's been in front of it the whole time. It it just so
Dude, that's
happens to be the
perfect.
album of the week right now.
That is crazy. I have that
Yeah.
vinyl.
I
That's so
only
funny.
I only just recently got this. I bought it off a guy on Facebook. So,
Wow, that
oh yeah.
startled me. I was like, "Whoa, where did that come from?"
Ta-da!
Ta-da! Dude, I was just listening to Amberlynn. I mean, Amberlynn and Andrew Peterson are my two biggest influences by one. I have
Hmm.
a lot of influences, but I was just listening through their discography again this week, and I was just like, there's just not a band that brings me joy the way Amberlynn brings me joy.
Yeah.
I love them so much. But Cities is listening to Cities again. I'm just like, I can't divorce it from like the 15-year-old me hearing it for the first time. But I still like. I just don't think there's anything else in that genre that is like it. Like it is just.
They were very unique, and I feel like that they're kind of underappreciated in that sense, you know.
They're kind of like pegged as like a Fall Out Boy kind of adjacent band, and like those.
Yeah.
But I feel like their stuff it had a little bit more '80s influence. It's more
Oh yeah.
artful. I
Yeah.
think than people give it credit for. They kind of
Mm-hmm.
are treated like a radio rock band, but it's very like very artful. I mean, like his
Yeah.
influences were and are like Depeche Mode and like Morrissey and all
Mm-hmm.
these like really like more downbeat like 80s stuff. But Steven's
Yeah.
voice is just my favorite voice ever. His
Yeah.
melodies are insane. I've told this story over and over again. The night before my 15th birthday, I heard Cities for the first time, and
Mm.
I listened to a Whisper and a Clamor for 3 hours straight, which I've never done anything like that before or since.
You're
And
like
like
crying
getting
in your bedroom, you're listening to it.
I wasn't even crying. I was just like overjoyed, and I was a sad teenager at that time. Like so, but like it just brought me so much joy, and I remember it like it shifted music for me where I was like it felt like I didn't know I could enjoy music that much, and
Mm.
getting I feel like getting past the unwinding cable car on that record for the first like week was like getting past the level in a video game because it just kept repeating the beginning of the record over and over. And then of
Yeah.
course like now, I mean, at this stage, I would say "Dismantle Repair" is a top five favorite song of all time for
Oh
me.
yeah.
I think it's perfect. I think it's incredible. And then Finn is one of the greatest closers.
Finn is
It's
so
just
good.
like it is so good. And
Definitely gives me
that was
chills.
yeah. I was just listening to it the other day, and it's like even emotionally and lyrically, some of his stuff. And I think you look at artists who have persevered in their faith too, like Stephen
Mm-hmm.
has, and and not to put him on the pedestal because here we are talking about grief and doubt, and
Mm.
every day I'm like I don't know how I'm gonna get through this sometimes, but you see. It kind of reframes some of their music in a positive way for me, where I pick up on more things lyrically than I think I did even when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, they're my favorite band. I love all of their albums.
Yeah.
Like even New Surrender, I think is their weakest, and I was listening to it the other day, and I'm just like,
Still good.
this is the best like album of a band for me. Like I think it's just so good.
It's like even their
Um,
bad records are really not bad,
it's
you know,
just
they're
it's
just
just
kind of
so good.
lesser. But what's oh man, what's the closer on New Surrender? It's Miserable.
Miserable, Visu, however you say it.
Yeah, I
So
don't know.
amazing, amazing
Yeah,
song.
that song is incredible. Like it
Very
does.
underrated.
Yeah, it definitely it's my favorite from that album, but it's like it's up
Yeah,
there with like their best
yeah.
songs in my opinion.
Yeah, I was just listening to it the other day, and I'm just like, this is just a revelation song. But it
Mm-hmm.
also just it's so epic. Sad thing about that record is like it belongs on a different record. Like that song in the
Yeah,
opener and a few songs in
it
between,
really
like
stands
Disappear is
out.
incredible. But like
Yeah.
the whole that record is just a mess. But it's fun to listen to. But
It's a beautiful mess.
it's a beautiful mess. But Cities is, I mean, it's perfect. It's also like it's another one that my sister kind of passed down to me,
Yeah.
and yeah, so it's just kind of like the older siblings paving the way for that music. I was just talking to her the other day on the phone. She's like, "Yeah, I still work out to that record. I still think it's like one of the best albums ever." And she's like in 40 and not listening to that kind of music now. But
Nice. Dude, I was working
but
out to Anne Berlin like a couple months ago cuz I was prepping for an episode that I wanted to do. I wanted to make a tier list of Anne Berlin albums, and I was just kind of re-listening to them. But I was doing it while I was working out. I was like, this is actually really great workout music, honestly.
yeah,
I
it,
haven't made that. I haven't made that episode yet because I had the whole like technical issues and such. So I'll get back to it one of these days. But that'll be an exciting episode to do.
yeah.
But yeah, Anne Berlin is, and I feel like I didn't realize how much it influenced me till with my music. I remember one time listening to um Down, their song Down from
Yes,
Dark as a Way, Light as a Place. I was listening to that. I was like,
so good.
man, this sounds like I feel like this had more of an impact on my music than I really even realized before. It's like this sounds like something that like Sherwood Forest would cover or something like that.
Mm,
So, but yeah,
that's a
Amberlin.
this isn't an Amberlin podcast. Just last thing, that particular record, "Dark Is the Way," has always been kind of near the, not at the bottom, but it's like to me the least of their stuff that I just absolutely love, which is a weird
Yeah.
thing to say. And then
No,
listening
yeah.
to it this last week, I'm like, this record's so, awesome, and I don't know what to do. Like every time I listen
Hmm.
to their albums, I'm just like, I don't know which goes where. If I was to
Right. Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
just so
that
good.
one's also kind of underappreciated. I've always had a love for that album. I feel like it was
It's beautiful.
I think it was the first album that came out after I became a fan of theirs.
Mm,
Like it was the first release that for me as a fan. So it was really
mm,
exciting for me.
that's
But
sweet, gorgeous.
cool. I'm glad we could bond over Anne Berlin.
Yeah, it's so fun. That was hilarious. The vinyl
Yeah,
cracked me up. I
I
was like,
was
where did
thinking
that?
about it because I thought I remember you saying that you were a fan of Anne Boleyn. I was like, oh, I wonder if he's gonna like mention them or not.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
cool. All right, so that's two so far. What's the next one?
So this was like the fifth that I was like I couldn't think about, and I was trying to think of which route I wanted to go. And this one like surprises me because actually until like the last month I wasn't even sure if I thought this was the band's best album,
Mm,
and then it just hit me really really hard that it's not only my favorite by this man, but it's one of my very favorite records of all time. But Nothing Is Sound by Switchfoot.
oh,
Um,
okay.
like it hit me recently. I've always The Beautiful Letdown has always been their number one to me, um,
Yeah,
and
it's a number one for
I've
a lot of people.
I've always put that kind of in the top 10 for me,
Hmm.
of like all time. And then when I listened to Nothing Is Sound a couple months ago, which it's always been like very close to me,
Yeah.
it just suddenly I'm like, this is one of my favorite records. Period.
Hmm.
And so relevant, not just to when it was released, but like incredibly relevant now.
Yeah.
Just found it very moving. Beautiful Letdown, Nothing Is Sound feel like kind of sister records because they're both
Yeah.
deeply biblical. Like I think way more biblical than people were giving them credit for at the time because they had
Hmm.
gotten so mainstream. But
Yeah. Yeah. They had their mainstream hits and such.
yeah, I also love that like John Foreman wrote Nothing Is Sound when they got huge because that's
Yeah.
not the kind of record like that kind of soul searching and looking looking at the vanity of things that shows a maturity in how you're dealing with, like he has that line in the blues of, is it like, um is this what they call freedom, is this what you call pain, is this what
Mm.
they call discontented fame? It's just like
Yeah.
even alluding to like he's got all this stuff, and rather than him indulging in whatever fame and success was bringing them, he was actually thinking hard about just the futility of it all. And it's such an edifying record, though. Like it's heavy, and it really is more honest than most most Christian records. I feel like around that time,
Hmm.
but it's so encouraging at the end. It kind of weaves this kind of narrative. It kind of goes back and forth. Like it's like flip flops. Every song is like it's like really encouraging. It's like heavy, encouraging. Like it kind of keeps going
Yeah.
back and forth on the record, but it just lands on that on Daisy, which is just a perfect closer. And
Yeah.
I realized last time like this is a perfect record. I have no qualms with this record. And Switchfoot's so influential for me in general, and I sometimes forget that
Hmm.
because I like their most recent stuff too, but because my favorite stuff is a little older, I've kind of forgotten, I think, at times how much they had an impact, not just on me, but people around me. Another reason I thought about that in terms of like my very favorites, my buddy who passed away in 2017, Nothing Is Sound was, I think, like it was his favorite record. It
Oh,
was at
gotcha.
least in his top five, and so I think of him when I hear that record too. But
Wow.
but yeah, so it's so that album just it hit me this year how much that means to me. But it's kind of a new thing. Like I wouldn't have expected to
Mm.
put that in my top five of all time until even just thinking about like this list that you gave me to
Yeah, well, you're
put
welcome,
down.
I guess.
But yeah,
but
so
but yeah, it's a great album. I need to go back to it. I think because I definitely did have my Switchfoot phase, and I think I do actually retrospectively, I think I do prefer this one over Nothing Is Sound personally. Maybe because like you, uh, well, I don't think you said this, but like Nothing Is Sound is great and it has a lot of great songs on it, but it also has like a lot of the radio hits that kind of got overplayed, and this one, and you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but I, you know, there's so many songs on Nothing Is Sound that are so great, and I think I was listening. I think they were talking about this on the JFH podcast. How like this album was kind of like it wasn't. It had kind of like a mixed reception, you know, um,
so weird.
because yeah, I don't really get it myself, but I guess you know I feel like they did go a little heavier on this one. You got songs like Stars and Lonely
Yeah,
Nation and but like some
it,
and politicians and some like really but then like some really deeper songs like Fatal Wound and The Blues and Shadow Proves the Sunshine.
mm-hmm.
It's yeah, it like you said, it's not the kind of album that you make after you sell out, I guess, you know,
Yeah,
and I guess I never really appreciated it in that way. But I personally loved how Switchfoot, even after like they got mainstream, they still continue to like challenge themselves.
oh
Like
yeah.
I even love Oh Gravity. Not a lot of
I
people
think of
love that
Gravity's
album.
so fun, so creative. The things they
Oh
do, I
yeah.
think Dirty Second Hands might be my favorite Switchfoot song. Actually, it's so weird,
Oh yeah, it's weird, but
but
I
it
love it.
works. It
Yeah.
works. Whatever they did
Hmm.
on that, it's great. Yeah, they don't get enough. Kind of like Amberlin. I think some of these bands like they don't. Reliant K is another one where it's like
Hmm.
there's some of these bands that don't get enough. They don't get enough credit for how artful they are.
Yeah.
Like Nothing
Hmm.
is sound. Like happy is a yuppie word. You listen to something, you're like, what is this? This is strange,
Kind of
but
song is
it's
that?
perfect. Like it's so good. Um,
Yeah.
honorable mention by Reliant K. I almost because that got me into just this kind of music in general. But then
Oh
I feel like
sure.
Cities was kind of an extension of that more. But that's also one of my all
Hmm.
time favorites. I love that record.
Yeah. It's a classic. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So cool. Yeah. Switchfoot. Can't go wrong with Switchfoot. I also really love John Foreman's solo stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Especially his first few EPs in the first album is great.
Same here.
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. So up. What's next?
So then for Be Brother Sister by Me Without You.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
I that album I think it might be the most like technically perfect record I've ever heard.
Hmm.
I just think it's there's not a nothing missing in it and there's so much going on. Um I mean he even like breaks down laughing in one of the songs and it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's just
Do
it's
you know
like
the
it's
story behind that actually?
I don't know if I do.
So apparently, this is my buddy Mitchell. He's like the biggest fan of Me Without You. They're his favorite band, and he told me um, that when he was tracking the song, apparently the other band members had like recorded them saying like really weird stuff. I don't know exactly what it was. I don't think anyone really knows except for the band. But Aaron didn't know that they did that, and so he's while he's trying to record his vocals, he's hearing them saying all this stupid stuff, and then it just made him laugh while he was recording. Just left it in there.
Oh, that's awesome. I love
So yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. I just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure you knew that, but yeah, continue.
no, I love that. That actually reminds me of some stuff Alan was doing actually while we were recording Home Enough for Now, which is obviously like a dead serious record in so many ways, but there's I'll have to send it to you. I'll just have to put it out at some point because it's become like a meme in my office with one of my coworkers where he I was trying to sing. This is a total like going off, but
No, go
there's like
for it.
I was trying to sing a harmony for the bridge of Surgical Wound,
Hmm.
which my friend Jacob sang uh,
Jacob
the bridge
Goins,
on.
yeah.
Yeah, you know Jacob probably through audio
Yeah, I
things.
did a
So
show with him recently when he was in town.
oh,
It's
that's so
great.
cool.
Yeah,
I want to do I want to do a show with Jacob really badly.
dude,
That's
yeah, that would be
the
great.
hard part about being in California, but
Yeah.
he or I no, but I was trying to do a harmony. No, I don't even think I was trying to do a harmony. I think I was sick and I was trying to do a melody and it was so bad that Alan thought I was trying to do a harmony
Oh.
and he isolated it because this is what he does whenever I do something bad is he isolates it and remixes it. And so there's just and he remixed it with this like 1950s like noir like beat underneath it like that sounds like some like detective show and it's just like anyway, I've got to post it sometimes. That's what that
Dude,
made me
yeah,
think
you
of when you
should.
mentioned Aaron
Definitely.
Weiss. But
I
yeah,
love
you have
stuff
to
like
laugh
that,
in between when you're recording weird stuff. But yeah, I
for
that
sure.
album though, um, when I first heard it, a friend of mine introduced me to it, and I'm like, "What is this?" Like in a bad way. So I'm just like, "This is so weird." And then like a couple words caught me, and then I went home and I listened to the whole record, not expecting to listen to the whole thing, but I listened to the first song, like, "Messes of Men," like reading the lyrics,
Hmm.
and it just was like, wow, these are like the best lyrics I've ever read in my life,
Hmm.
and then just the whole record, just listening through the whole thing, it kept blowing my mind. I'm like, I don't know what I'm listening to. I just know it's one of the best things I've ever heard. Um, I remember like just laughing when I got to "Oh Porcupine," and when he says "All creation groans," and then it says "shh," and then everything cuts out, and there's like a
Hmm.
pause, and he says, "Listen to it," and then like everything comes right back in. I'm like, who does that? This is like the weirdest, but it's perfect. Like everything they did on that record
Yeah.
was incredible. And yeah, I just that one is like Amberlin. I feel like Cities kind of taught me how like a great record can be crafted and just sounds like kind of the
Hmm.
just different kinds of sounds like the diversity that can be put into a record.
Yeah.
Brother Sister was like that, but it also taught me about like words have color too, and like have like you
Oh,
can
sure.
play with words in
That's
such a
good.
unique way, and the stuff he does is like there's nothing like what Aaron Weiss writes, and Me
Yeah.
Without You, I would say alongside Amber Lynn would be like my favorite bands,
Yeah.
kind of together. And I feel the same way about Me Without You's discography as Amber Lynn's, where I'm like I listen to their whole discography and I'm just like this is all great. I think the ones that are kind of on the extremes of like A to B Life and It's All
Yeah.
Crazy are kind of my least favorites. I like the ones
Oh
that
man,
kind
I
of are
love It's
more
All
midway.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's. I think it's brilliant. I don't want to listen to it all the time.
Gotcha.
Um, but Brother Sister, I think is amazing. Untitled, I think, is like their second masterpiece. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
dangerously close for me. And then
Hmm.
Pale Horses, Catch for Us the Foxes is obviously amazing. January 1979, just Paper
Yeah.
Hanger is amazing. Just that it's frustrating because I have so much trouble getting people into Me Without You, and I understand why.
They're an acquired
But
taste, that's for sure.
I
Yeah.
get why,
I
but I want so badly to like for like a friend to just listen to this and be like I say the same thing I did where I'm like I don't know what this is but I think this is incredible and I
yeah.
want to keep listening. But yeah,
Yeah, it's funny because like I feel like I regrettably got into Me Without You a bit too late. It was like just before they released Untitled.
Okay.
because I remember being a teenager and often around that time, how I discovered music was that I went to the library, and for some reason, my library had a good selection of Tooth and Nail records. So that
Mm-hmm.
was really cool. That's how I got into
That's
like
cool.
Anne Boleyn and other and like Showbread and other bands. But I picked up Me Without You, and I just wasn't ready for them. I put in, I don't know if it was like Brother Sister or Catch for Us the Foxes, but I remember putting it on and being like, this is like the worst singing I've ever heard.
It's
And
not good.
no,
It's not
yeah,
supposed
but
to be.
well,
Neither is
I didn't.
neither is. Hey, if Bob Dylan can do it, though, like anybody can
Yeah,
do it.
I just didn't understand it, and
Yeah.
so
No.
I didn't pick it up until like a few years later. It was like, okay, I understand, but I still didn't really dive into their discography, and it wasn't actually until me and my friend Mitchell, we have this podcast, the Podwood Forecast, and he wanted to do an episode on Me Without You, and so basically challenged me to listen to their whole discography. And I was like, yeah, this is kind of incredible, you know.
Hmm.
So but then that was around the time when Untitled came out, and then they announced that they were calling it quits. So it's like, ah, man, I'm a
Yeah.
little late to the game, but still
I mean,
really
when I was
appreciative.
17 and when I was introduced to Brother Sister at 17, I was like this close to just moving on, and then I would have probably missed out on that. But just
Yeah,
a couple lyrics caught my ear, and I'm like, I'm gonna stick with this, and then it just it just changed the game for me. It made me
hmm.
realize, okay, I can probably listen to anything now if I can listen to this,
Yeah,
which makes it them sound like they're not a good band, but I actually think they're one of the best bands ever.
oh yeah,
um, but it's
yeah,
just it is. I get why they're an acquired taste. Um,
hmm.
I never blame somebody for just being like, what is wrong with you? Like all the rest of the music you share is like so good. Like, but what is this band? It's like I've had multiple people say that to me. But
Right.
I love them. They're another band I could listen to all the time too. It's not even like I have to be in a mood to listen to Me Without You. I could just always turn them
For
on.
sure, yeah. Just a moment of shameless self promotion. There, I don't know if you were aware, but there was a sometime last year there was a fan made tribute album that was released independently, and my friend Mitchell covered one of their songs, and I also ended up covering All Circles on there.
Yo,
Uh, yeah, the album's called Torches Together, and it's like on Bandcamp and all the
dude,
streaming
I'm
platforms.
gonna
So
check
you
that
should
out.
check it
Was
out.
it was it
There's some
the
what's that?
I was gonna say, was it the 10 Stories record, or just it was just covers in general?
No, yeah, basically like you could just like submit like whatever song you wanted, as long as it wasn't claimed, you could just do it. So it's basically all these Me Without You fans coming together and covering their songs, and it was like it was while they were on their farewell tour and before they like officially called it quits. So there's
Yeah.
some good stuff on there. So I would recommend you check it out. And I'm pretty happy with the cover that I did as well. So yeah, just a little shameless self promotion there.
No, no, I'm gonna check that out.
For sure, man. Torches Together, that's what it's called.
Torches
But
together.
yeah, what's what number are we on right now?
The
I
last,
forget. Okay,
I think 5. Yeah.
let's have it, man.
So I
Last
like
but not least,
It's Andrew Peterson. That's like it's
of
obviously.
course.
It's just a matter of which Andrew Peterson record of the 10 that
Oh,
I
I'm
love.
sure that's difficult for you to
Um,
pick.
so so yeah, there's like, not to do a long build up because but there's a few I was thinking, like Burning Edge of Dawn has made me cry more than any other record.
Hmm.
Um, it's had a big impact on me, but I don't think it's like his best record as a whole. Um,
Hmm.
And then Far Country, I think, is his most underrated. I think that's a masterful record that people don't talk about much, because it's essentially a record all about death that is so joyful
Mm-hmm.
and peaceful. Um, Counting Stars is like the record I could just like fall asleep to in the best way. Like if I need to bring down my heart rate or I'm stressed, I just hear like the beginning of Many Roads and I'm like,
Yeah.
like I like just start breathing. Um, but Light for the Lost Boy to me is like his masterpiece. I think
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that, and that was the record that really solidified him as my favorite songwriter at the time. I mean, still now. Favorite's a
Right.
funny word because it's like, but I mean, he's had. I write music because Andrew Peterson's written music.
Yeah.
Um, the same way he writes music because Rich Mullins wrote music. It's
Mm-hmm.
people who have had just just a lineage of songwriters having an impact on one another. But Light for the Lost Boy came out when I was 19 in 2012, a year after my uncle died, and it was like a 3 month journey of kind of caring for him in the hospital, and it was a really
Mm-hmm.
grueling summer, and I think like all those emotions hit me kind of a year later, and then I was also 19, so I was kind of beginning to come to grips with like my childhood being over for the first time. um,
Yeah.
and it was just this. I was just like it was just um, an intense time. Like September 2012 or August 2012 is when that record released. And when I heard that album, I was like, this is telling my story
Hmm.
um, so vividly. Like everything I'm going through right now, this album is addressing, and not just in a I relate to this, but in like a gospel centered. Just this is pointing me to Jesus. Like this is taking me, it's reaching into my feelings, and actively like taking me out of them and pointing me to Christ. Which all the music I've mentioned up to this point has done that to a degree.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Lord has blessed me with like multiple mentors. There's a couple guys in my life who are some of my closest brothers, and um, I Andrew's stuff felt like it almost bridged the gap, where it's like the music version of that, where it's like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm talking to a godly older brother in the faith who's seen more than I have, and is telling me it's all going to be okay because Jesus wins, and
Mm-hmm.
in Jesus we win too, and so like Light for the Lost Boy. Yeah, I just think as a record and even musically and songwriting, it's just a masterpiece and the most adventurous of his stuff. Even though I'm not necessarily listening to Andrew the way I would listen to like Me Without You, you know,
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it's kind of putting on a different listening cap, which doesn't make any sense because you don't listen through hats. But
I get what you're
but
saying. I'm tracking along.
thank you. But yeah, that just kind of began just the journey of just falling in love with his stuff and deciding I wanted to write songs myself, and
Mm-hmm.
um, and then connecting with Asher down the road, and I'm now getting to kind of contribute to that community
Yeah.
just a little bit and being
Yeah. And
actually
then
kind of
having
connected.
Sky sing on a song too.
Yeah,
Or
yeah. I'm
yeah.
I'm basically a fan who's just gone too far.
You're like
But
showing up for dinner at their house.
yeah, they're like,
It's like, hey
who are
guys.
you? Like, yeah. Oh gosh. There's part of me that's just that almost cringes, but I think it's a proper thing to like. I just think it's a blessing to me. For me, I want to be
Oh
able to
yeah.
even pour back out on the people who poured into me. Be able to
Mm-hmm.
honor what God has done through yeah, like all of the artists that I mentioned, but especially
Mm-hmm.
Andrew and just like if I hope he doesn't stop making music, but I know he's shifted to writing books a lot more and not putting
Mm-hmm.
out as much. And I don't totally know what his plans are in terms of the future, but if I could be one of the artists who kind of carries on the torch, as it were, and I have friends who kind of want to do the same thing, of just writing honest music that points to Jesus, but is also speaks to the human condition, the way the
Yeah.
gospel directly addresses and just the entire incarnation of Jesus. um,
Right.
it solves. It's just like I wanna be able to do that with my music. So it gives me I would have a deep love and fandom for music the way I have, like we're talking about, if even without his music. But I don't think I would be making it if his music didn't exist. I wouldn't
No,
have
yeah.
any idea of how I wanted other people to feel, or what I wanted other people to receive from my music if I didn't know that I want what people to get from my music what I got from and continue to receive from Andrew's music. So um,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, but Light for the
I'd
Lost
say
Boy.
you're on the right track so far.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, you. Yeah, you person right there watching this video. Hey, did you know that this was just a little clip from an actual full episode of the show that I do called the I'm Clifford Today Show? Well, now you do. So you should just go and check that full episode out. And hey, while you're at it, you should just go subscribe and check out my whole channel. That's just my advice. You don't have to. You can do whatever you want.